So Shiv, firstly, if you can tell me, what does it feel like to be 16 and a CEO of a company?
It feels awesome. Honestly, this is what I wanted to do, and this is what I want to do when I grew up as well.
Okay.
And just to start so early and to have this amazing opportunity to actually do something that I'm extremely passionate about and
Hmm.
actually build my ideas out and prototype them. It's a really amazing opportunity, and it's all I could have ever asked for.
Right. And when you started this company, I know that there's a very interesting story behind it. So can you tell us a little about where you got this idea from, and what the company is all about, and a little about what your product is all about?
So everything started on June 13th, 2018, when there was a short circuit on the 32nd floor of Beaumont Towers, which is a high rise in Mumbai. And that small little flame that started with the short circuit, that actually grew into a large fire, which engulfed the entire top of that apartment building. And I actually live on the 30th floor of that same tower.
Okay.
And that was when I realized that something has to be done. It was the pain and the panic that I felt when my grandparents had to actually walk down 23 stories. And there was people who I actually know, my neighbors, who actually feared for their lives. And even it was a traumatic experience, even for me, having to actually go down and actually escape the entire fire. There was so much uncertainty. It was a terrible experience. And I didn't want anything like that to happen again. And right after that, a few months later in Diwali, another fire took place.
Oh.
And this one was right outside my house in front of the electrical duct. And what happens is these fires usually start with a small flame. They don't start off large. But the delayed response, the fact that it goes unnoticed, causes the fire to actually become much larger and spread. And it was about 12 a.m. and I woke up and I couldn't breathe because there was smoke through like in my entire house. I had to rush to the balcony and then wait, catch my breath. And then after that, a few security guards from the building, the apartment complex actually came up. And then it was a very traumatic experience because I had to climb down and my parents weren't actually at home that night. And that was when I decided to do some research into the problem to try and figure out if I was probably the only one facing this problem or if there are many others like me.
Right.
And what I found was really astonishing.
Hmm.
Mumbai has so many fires every year.
Yeah.
And the two main causes of these fires are gas leaks and a delayed response. And that's terrible because a fire that actually starts small can be put out really easily. And
Absolutely.
just a delayed response, the firemen not being able to reach the fire in time, or people not being able to notify the fire brigade in time, that causes so much damage.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I was actually doing some robotics, learning about technology and IoT. And I was also part of this really brilliant program called YEA,
Yeah.
Young Entrepreneurs Academy India, which Miss Namita is actually heading currently.
Yeah.
And that actually gave me the tools and the skills which I needed to actually implement an idea to
Hmm.
sort of solve this problem.
Hmm.
And after a lot of research prototyping, I can finally say that I've been able to make a product that can sort of address this problem.
Coming to you, ma'am, what was your first impression when you met Shiv? I mean, like he said, he just had an idea. So, what was that spark that you could see in him that you kind of had to hone and turn him into an entrepreneur?
The first thing you notice about Shiv when you meet him is this incredible hunger,
Yeah.
or what you call fire in your belly.
Yeah.
And I think that really separates mediocrity from excellence.
Absolutely.
And Shiv from day one had that fire, had that hunger, that drive. And he really turned into this super passionate entrepreneur, trying to get into every little nuance of his venture,
Yeah.
whether it is market research, the financials, trying to get a prototype in place, understanding the legalities of getting a patent and all of that. His attention to detail was remarkable.
Yeah.
So definitely, we love the fact that Shiv had that drive to turn a very personal experience into a venture that would benefit a lot more people. And that's where, when he spent those 20 weeks with us, he really got into the details of all these different business plan essentials. What he also did is, every time we had a speaker or a field trip host, Shiv always had his hand up and had very pointed, very good questions to ask.
Sure.
And what was also good is, in YA we connect kids to mentors. So I know that Shiv went out of his way to go and meet certain real estate entrepreneurs that we had connected him to show his product, to ask about, how relevant it was in their context. So he really got a lot of customer feedback.
Coming back to you, Shiv, if you can talk a little about your technology in itself.
So when I was doing some research into the main causes of fires, like I said earlier, the main causes were gas leaks and a delayed response.
Right.
And I tried to sort of come up with a product to sort of address both of those problems at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I came up with a product called SenseSafe,
Mm-hmm.
and SenseSafe is an IoT-enabled smart gas detector.
Okay.
So what it does is it actually senses the level of LPG and other flammable gases in the environment. It also senses smoke, and then it compares it to a set of literature values, and it checks if there's actually a gas leak happening in the house or not. And a lot of people at this point would say that this sounds a lot like a regular smoke detector. But the key difference is that if you have a regular smoke detector or a regular gas detector at your home, and if there is a gas leak, what's going to happen is it's going to sound a really loud alarm, and it's going to flash a really bright light. But the main problem I identified, and the reason why the two fires in my building grew really large, because for both of those fires, there was no one at home to actually sense to actually spot the flame and call the fire brigade.
Yeah.
And because of that delayed response, those fires grew like really large. And with a regular smoke detector or a gas detector, no, and if nobody's at home, if you're maybe on vacation, or if you've gone to work and nobody's at home, nobody's really there to hear that alarm and see that bright light. So what my product actually does is it's IoT connected, so it can send an SMS, an email, and it can actually make an automated phone call directly to your mobile phone. And in the event that you're busy, it can also forward these calls directly to the fire brigade. And after some research, I actually realized that my product actually made it 51.7 times faster than the average amount of time to detect the fire.
Yeah.
And obviously, this didn't come in the first prototype. So the first prototype I made was a very basic prototype. It could only sense LPG, not that many gases. And one of the key drawbacks was it only sent an email or an SMS, and it wasn't really sending a phone call to the user. But after that, I did more iterations, I did more prototyping, and I actually made a much better looking product, more well-routed wires and things like that. And also, I added a better IoT infrastructure, which allows me to place calls directly to the user. So it's an ongoing process. I'm going to continue making changes over the next few months and actually get my product to the market.
Coming to you, when Shiv first came to you, what were his top 3 concerns, if you can recall, and how did you help him get through to it, or rather, what stage was he at when he, came to you with the idea?
So, like Shiv himself mentioned, when he came to YA, he was just a programmer. So his top concerns were how do I really transform this coding to an actual viable venture that makes money, right? And then his second big sort of top of the mind thing that he needed to figure out is how do I build a prototype, get a patent for it. And, to Shiv's credit, he's been to a couple of fairs in Germany where he's actually, put up his product, had people visiting his booth, got a lot of feedback at a tech fair. So Shiv's really gone out of his way to build a product and get that feedback. And, the thing that, and what stands out about Shiv is, he's got a very strong value system, which really endeared him to me. And which is why he stood out in class. He was always very humble, very hardworking, and just very, very good sense of values. Really, really a good human being. And I think as someone, I've worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years, you can never discount those values in an entrepreneur.
That's very, very true. Right. Coming back to you, Shiv, if you can talk a little about your plans going forward, how are you planning to scale up? And you're at a crucial phase in your schooling life as well, right? So how do you plan to juggle that? And where do you see yourself going in the next couple of years?
So over the next maybe few months, especially, I'd like to work more on my product. My product is already patent pending.
Okay.
And over the next, so it's already been published, and over the next maybe month or two, it should get approved.
Okay.
And after that, I'd like to validate my product and maybe certify it so that it's safe to be installed in homes. And then I can actually install it in more places. So right now, I've only installed it in a robotics center and at my home. And the prototype which I've made right now, it's fully functional.
Okay.
The IoT bit of it works, and the gas sensing bit of it works perfectly. It's just that I'd like to refine it more, get it certified so that it's completely safe for people and it can actually reach many homes and actually make a difference.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
And so I've over my entrepreneurial journey, I've actually realized that there's so many problems that the world faces. There's pollution, there's unemployment, there's hunger, there's lack of education in some places where students don't get to go to school in some areas, and there's so many different problems, and fire safety is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. It's a
Yeah.
problem that I faced, it's a problem that I was really passionate about, and actually making a product can make a difference to so many people. But I don't think this is the end of my journey. I think there's so many more problems that I can actually use robotics and programming to sort of solve and create solutions for. And I feel that is the most important part of entrepreneurship for me, just making a difference to someone's life.
True.
And I'd like to point out one more thing here, because Shiv is too humble to tell you all this. Just like he forgot about the Germany fair,
Yeah.
there's one more thing I must tell you, that the minute COVID pandemic hit us, sometime in early April, and I must put a word of compliment, or, must praise his mother, Madhu, who has really supported him. She sent me a phenomenal app that he came up with that actually helps with tracing of and this is when Arogya Setu was very early. Shiv had already come up with this app. He had also come up with another coding app to make fire safety more interesting and to build awareness around fire safety. So after making this prototype of a product, he has come up with 2 apps
Wow.
in the last 4 months that are pretty phenomenal. So I see kids like Shiv, not stopping at one problem. I mean, he's got a mind that's working overtime. And I see people like Shiv solving many problems for our country.
And Shiv, what is this app that Ms. Namita just spoke about that you've developed? I mean, if it's something to do with COVID, I think that's something that's very relevant as well, right? So if you can talk a little about that.
So the COVID application is actually a web application. So it's currently hosted on a website that I have, and basically the entire point of that website is to sort of show the effect of COVID-19 and how the lack of social distancing can actually spread cases so much more. So what I did was I used some of my programming knowledge and some information already available about the cases of COVID-19, and I plotted a network graph. So that actually kind of shows the patient-to-patient transfer of COVID-19 throughout the entire country. And you can actually see a few clusters of patients, like supposing patient 500 spread it to patient 501 who spread it to 503 and 504, and you can see where those patients, in which part of the country those patients live, and how the lack of social distancing can actually lead to the spread of the disease even more than when you're actually following lockdown and following the rules. And that in itself carries a message to follow the rules of social distancing, follow lockdown, because these rules are important. And it also serves as a really good way of visualizing the COVID-19 data, which can also help people actually make rules and policies.
Yeah.
So it was more awareness based.
And now, something that I think funding is an aspect which is always, of great concern when it comes to any entrepreneur. So is that also part of the course that is taught at YEA to kids? And is that an area of concern, or was that an area of concern for Shiv while he was, in that 20-week program?
This is a very good question you've asked, Nani. YEA does give cash prizes. So we give like 40,000 to the first winner, and some amount of seed funding. But what has been disappointing for me personally is that I have not seen serious investors coming forward to support these children. And that's the thing I want to really tell the world, that these kids are truly phenomenal. These teen entrepreneurs are incredible. And I really hope that some serious investors put their money into these ventures. We haven't seen that yet, but I'm an optimist, and I hope people like Shiv will change a lot of these negative stereotypes that, oh, kids can't do this and kids can't do that.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. And Shiv, when through this entire journey, if you can talk a little about some challenges that you had to overcome, a couple of those from the idea, and I'm talking about all your ventures, and including the app, a couple of those in a personal front as well. What would those be?
So obviously, like, a major challenge is the amount of academic work. So there's obviously going to be schoolwork, there's obviously going to be other commitments, and it's actually really tough to actually balance everything together. But I think that I'm really passionate about this. I like programming. It's actually a hobby for me. So I managed to actually do this on free weekends, free time that I had, and I actually managed to give enough time to it. And honestly, it might sound simple, like some people might say that it's simple to actually manage time, but personally, I'm not perfect at it, and honestly, I have to improve a lot more. And obviously, managing time and achieving balance is one of the most important things, and that's important for me too. And it's something that I have to learn much more, and I'm already learning about it and getting better. And for more technical challenges that I actually faced, so no product will work on the first try, and that's something I learned the hard way. My product actually didn't work a first few times, and then I spent a lot of time actually programming, checking everything, testing it, working, checking if it's working, different things like that. And then the reward for all of that was actually seeing it work 20 times, continuously
Wow.
testing it at one of the robotics labs I'd installed it at. So honestly, one thing that I've learned is never to give up. Honestly, keep going at it. Keep trying to solve the problem, thinking about it, using your free time, and eventually you're going to come across a solution. And when you do come across that solution, it's going to be the most rewarding experience ever.
Great. I think that will be great advice for, other kids who look up to you and want to become entrepreneurs as well. And I think not just kids, but a lot of adults as well. And ma'am, coming back to you, when it comes to, because you deal with a lot of course, kids, but a lot of parents as well. Have you ever faced issues of a lot of parents sounding you on things like, our kids are growing up too early when you're encouraging them to become entrepreneurs so soon? So has that ever been a concern, and how would you address that or rather advise parents on young entrepreneurship in itself?
In fact, we've had the most positive feedback from parents. Parents have come and told us the most endearing stuff, like our dinner table conversations have become so exciting thanks to YA, because now we're discussing what logo we should design. We're figuring out the pricing. We're going to stores and seeing what competitors are priced at. We're trying to see what the packaging color should be. So I think YA has actually brought families together, because it's just an amazing project that they work on together. And we have this thing called trade fair, where every entrepreneur puts up a booth, and we have 600 plus visitors, and they actually make money. So once they make money and they realize that this is something tangible, sky's the limit. I mean, it puts a lot of confidence in them. Parents have also come back saying that, some of the intangibles that YA teaches them, like networking with kids from various different schools, learning interesting entrepreneurial stories, learning about failure, because we make sure all our speakers talk about failure, which is still unfortunately a taboo in India. And then, learning how to pitch in 3 minutes, which even adults can't do, making very crisp slides, which even adults can't do. YA, it really is a lot about these life skills. And parents who are out in the corporate world are very appreciative of the fact that kids are learning such important life skills in a very fun and experiential manner. So we've really had some tremendous feedback, and that's what keeps me and my entire team working harder and harder with each passing year.
And going forward, what are your plans?
So right now I'm 16 years old, so I'll be going to grade 11.
Yeah, right.
And right now I'm studying in the Dhirubhai Ambani International School. So
Okay.
I'll be pursuing grade 11 and 12 in the school. And then after that, maybe I will go to college or universities to study, or maybe I can start working on my own business or take up. It's really open right now for me.
Nice.
And right now I just want to learn new things and
Yeah.
sort of experience different things and actually go on and try to help people and maybe create new products and things like that.
And there's I believe you're launching a new product or working on a new product as well, right? And the launch of these existing products, has that been affected due to COVID at all? I mean, because since everything has taken an impact, has that also taken a hit?
So actually, my other product, it's not a product, it's more of a project.
Okay.
It's called the pipe cleaner. It is a robot to sort of combat the problem of manual scavenging in India. And the thought of people actually going into sewer pipes and actually having to clean it manually, that's a very terrible thought, and nobody should be able to do that. And actually, the Indian Constitution actually made this activity of manual scavenging illegal, but people still do it, and people are still dying. And I thought of making a robot to sort of solve that problem. So that's a bit of a background into the pipe cleaner. So I've actually been to the BMC sewerage engineering department, and I've spoken to them. I built a first prototype of this robot. But because of COVID-19 and because of the lockdown, I haven't been able to actually make continuous visits to the sewerage engineering department or actually test out my product in a real sewer. But I think I saw this as an opportunity to sort of focus on the COVID-19 project and actually build out a game to spread fire safety awareness and also focus more on my product.
Great. So, any closing remarks from your end, ma'am? Anything that you'd like to say? Any advice to young entrepreneurs? Any skills that they need to have, should work on?
I think my advice to young entrepreneurs is, keep that hunger alive and keep looking around you. There are a lot of problems, and just have that entrepreneurial mindset, which is that problem solving mindset, and the world is yours. Yeah. Dream big, dream big, and don't be scared of failing, and then just picking yourself right back up and going at it again. Yes. And, hats off to people like Shiv, because he's really going to be a role model to many teen entrepreneurs and really push them to dream big.
Absolutely. Shiv, one last question for you. What has been your mantra since you became an entrepreneur? What's kept you going?
So it's this kind of, it's like a quote sort of thing. I don't remember who said it initially, but the quote goes something like this. So innovation is a mix of the old and the new with a dash of surprise. And I think that quote really applies because there's so many problems out there in the world today, and there's so many new technologies continuously being invented and innovated. And that bridge between new solutions and old problems is actually where innovation lies. And apart from that, just perseverance, continuously going at a problem and never giving up. I think those two are really important things, and those things have stuck with me for my entire journey. So
I'm glad to hear that. Great. Thank you both so much for giving us the time and being on the show. You were listening to Forbes India Teenpreneurs. We'll be back next week with another Teenpreneur. See you then. Today's show was edited and mixed by Manswini Kaushik. If you liked the show, don't forget to share and subscribe. Also check out our other podcasts, a fortnightly series on our latest cover story called Inside Forbes India, and conversations about business, economics, and books on From the Bookshelves of Forbes India.